Good morning and welcome to the Show Me the Shift podcast this morning with Coach Lenora, and I am Coach Lenora. And today's topic is going to be about the STAR method of interviewing. Today is a career day, and so we talk about the career aspect of everything today. And so, in regards to that, I'm going to go ahead and share just a little bit of information about the Victorious Movement to get started. So, the Victorious Movement, of course, is my online community where we talk about a lot of different topics such as mindset. We talk about our purpose, our goal setting, as well as just law of attraction, abundance, not having that scarcity mindset, but having a mindset of abundance, as well as I share some HR tips and information there as well. And so, since today is Career Wednesday, I wanted to make sure that I shared with everybody that you can absolutely join this community. It's a great place to hang out. Yesterday, we did our $20 Cash App drawing and had our winner. And so, yeah, there's a lot of fun that is taking place in our community. So, but welcome, welcome, welcome. So today it's the HR 101 side, the career side of things, and we're going to talk about the STAR method of interviewing. So a lot of people are kind of feel unclear about how interviews go and what types of interviews can be out there. So you can have situational based interviews, behavioral based interviews, you could have technical based interviews. There's a lot of different ways in which companies can decide to interview. One of the methods that is really I would say ideal that you can use to answer questions when you get those "tell me about a time when this situation happened" type of questions. Because if you think about it, more than likely you've been in some type of interview where they've come to you with those types of questions, right? And the reason is that they want to find out about your past behavior so that it will be a great indication of your future behavior. And so what they'll do is they'll say, well, if you can tell me about a previous time you handled a situation like this, then it will give us an idea of how you problem solve, how you reason, and how you take action. And it gives them an idea of how you would potentially perform that same task for their company, especially if those skill sets are similar. So, based on that, I'm going to be sharing information today about the STAR method for interviews, and that is the situation, the task, the action, and the result. And so that's what STAR stands for. And so what we'll do is take each one of those and talk through that today. And of course, if you have any questions as you get through any of my quick Show Me the Shift podcast episodes, by all means, just reach out, DM me, email, send me information. I'm at hello@coachlenora.com, and just let me know what questions that you have. I'll be more than willing to answer those questions. And also, in case you weren't aware, I have a mini course. It's actually linked in this post, where if you have challenges with interviewing, for $37, you can get my mini course that will walk you through everything from understanding the job description to how to craft your resume accordingly to how to prepare for the interview. You even get 20 interview questions that could be asked of you during the interview. So that's really exciting. We also have where you understand more about what to do after the interview. If you get selected, what do you do after the interview? How do you follow up? Should you follow up? What if you get the offer? Should you negotiate or just, leave everything alone and don't mess it up? Like, all of those things are things that I talk through in this quick, less than 2 hour mini course. Like I said, it's amazing to just get all the insights, especially from someone who not only has sat in the chair and been interviewed, but was a recruiter for 20 years. And, oh, by the way, was a leader who hired people. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach that I'm including in this mini course to help people get the fullest understanding that I can give in regards to how they can go about applying successfully for jobs, but also interviewing successfully. So that way you kind of can walk into the interview with confidence, right? Because that's what's really important, is not feeling sweaty, not feeling anxious, feeling like, okay, I've prepared as much as I can prepare. Let me go in, put my best foot forward. If it's mine, it's mine. If it's not, it's not. But at least I know that I've done everything that I can do to prepare accordingly for this interview. So on that note, and like I said, that is linked in the posting here that you'll see in the description. You'll see the link to that, and it's called From Overlooked to Interviewed. So let's get into today's training and the STAR method. So when it comes to the situation, and I'll be, again, reading from my notes that are in my Victorious Movement community, because a lot of the things that I share with you all are things that the people in my community are able to get as a part of that membership. I'm just sharing with you, like, I don't know, 5% of what they're getting, and then they get the full percentage. So now, when it comes to the situation, this is really, setting the scene, right? So if you have a question that is, tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult leader. Right. So let's say you are in any kind of role. It could be a difficult leader, difficult customer. But let's say, tell me about a time when you had to deal with someone who was difficult to deal with. What was that situation? So to answer the situation part, you are setting the scene. You're going to say and not give very like generic responses to this, like truly set the scene. A lot of times people, especially introverts, might say, oh, well, the situation was this customer was upset. And what I did is I did X, Y, and Z. No, don't do that. Instead, you want to literally set a scene, like it's a movie playing in the interviewer's mind. Now, you don't want to take 15 minutes to set the scene, but you do want to give them an indication of the scenario. So it could be, for example, oh, there was a situation in which a leader had asked me to, let's say that you work in a retail store. So the leader had asked me to fold the shirts in a particular section. And so as I was folding the shirts, a customer asked me to show them where something was. So in the process of me going to show the customer exactly where something was, the leader realized the shirts weren't folded. And so they were frustrated. And based on that, they came to me pretty frustrated, upset, irate, and was wondering why I hadn't done the task that they had requested me to do. So you're giving a scenario, right? You're giving a situation of, this is what was happening. This is what was asked of me. This is how I went. And in a way, this is a great example of how a person is saying that, yes, something was wrong or somebody was frustrated, but in a way, I was doing something even more important, which was to help the customer. And so you explain that situation. This is what happened. This is how they felt about it. And now we get to the task, right? So it's, what was my responsibility in that situation? What was my task? So my task was to fold the shirts, right? And so therefore, you can explain it to say, what was your task? Well, my task was to fold the shirts. However, whenever a customer asks me a question, I always feel as though the customer is right. So therefore, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that that customer knew exactly where to go to find what it was that they were looking for, even if it meant that I moved from my post. Then what was the action? Describe the actions that you took to address the situation. So as I came back to my post, my leader was there, very frustrated and upset in regards to the fact that everything was not 100% done in the way that they thought it would be because I had walked away. So what I did is I explained to the leader that although I was folding the shirts, I ended up having to help a customer and getting that customer to exactly what they wanted. That customer was very thankful and happy. And I came right back to my post, and the result being that, what was the outcome of this situation? So as you explain that to the leader might say, oh, okay, I get it. Yes, good that you went ahead and took care of that for the customer. So therefore the result could be, now the leader was totally okay with what took place, knowing that this customer was satisfied. And oh, by the way, this customer purchased $200 worth of products. And so in the end, it all worked out. So you had the situation of what you were going through, the task that was at hand, the action that you took, and how you explain that even to the leader about that action that you took and why you took that action. And then the result of what the customer's expectation was and what they were happy and resolved with, but also what the leader ended up being happy and resolved with. And so that's just a high level example from a retail perspective. It could be the same thing in a customer service, experience of an irate customer. So, oh, the situation was that the person wanted to get a refund, but our policy was that we couldn't. So my task was that I had to go and research and figure out from a leader whether or not in this situation we could give this person a refund. And then the action that I took was to get back to the customer and let them know that, yes, in this instance, I am able to give you a refund. And the result was that the customer was happy. Like those are just some high level examples of that. But that is really where, number one, it's a lot of times when you're dealing with those behavioral based questions, they will ask you that full string. And they'll say, tell us about the situation. What was the task that you took care of? What happened? What did you do? And what was the result? Like they'll ask all of that. And so if you go into your interview with like a notebook, you should probably do that anyway. Go in with a notebook, pad, or pen, and then just write STAR at the top of it: situation, task, action, result. So that when you get those types of questions, you can just glance and be like, oh, I have to hit all four of these. So let me make sure I talk about what the situation is. Let me make sure I talk about the task, the action, and the result. And then I hit every piece of that question that they asked me. Now, you could have a scenario where they break it down and they say, well, tell us about that situation. And then you answer that question. All right, so what did you do? And then you tell that, oh, so what would kind of, what was your responsibility in that? I guess I should go there. What was your responsibility? Then what did you do? And then how did it end up? So sometimes they can break it down and make it a little bit easier to make sure you hit all those levels. But a lot of times they'll just ask it as one full on, situation, task, action, result sentence. And you have to remember to hit all those points. And you would be surprised not only how frequently people don't hit all the points, or how high level people are when they're discussing those points, but also you'll be surprised even from an HR perspective, because most of the interviews that I sat in on were HR related interviews. So people who are in HR, people who are recruiters, people who are in talent acquisition, and even they didn't hit every single section of that in their interview. So when you think about it, if you know this and you go in prepared for this, because I feel like sometimes with even HR people, it's like, it in theory that this is something that could be a part of your interview, but you don't realize, and you're nervous and all that. I mean, people in HR still get nervous. So you're nervous and all of that. You just don't realize like, oh, I need to hit all of these points so that they don't have to probe too deeply into what I missed. And so when you go into the interview and you already have that information there at hand that you can just glance at, and know S.T.A.R, situation, task, action, result. Let me make sure I hit all of that. Then you'll be steps ahead of everybody else, which is great. The other thing is that if they don't ask specifically a behavioral based question, let's say they ask a technical question, well, there could be instances where the STAR method still goes into play, where it's still, oh, this is a technical situation, but let me explain how my task, or what my task was, my involvement was with this technical situation. So it really depends on how questions are framed in the interview as to if the STAR method is solely for those behavioral based interview questions, or if they could even be ways in which you can answer very thoroughly other questions that are being asked during the interview process, which is great. And so let's see here. So here's a situation that I would say you can absolutely figure out when and where and how you can answer these questions. If they aren't situational questions, then what they could be, as an example, are questions that are finding out more about who you are as a person. And so what I would recommend is that you would go through and say, all right, let me figure out what questions they're going to ask about. Why do I want this job? Why would I be the best person for this job? At the end, they may ask you, what else do you want to share with us about yourself that we didn't ask you, so that way we can get a better understanding about who you are? And being ready to answer those types of questions, because when you think about it, there could be things that come up that you are just like, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't expect them to go in that direction. But some of these questions are just universal. They're always going to ask you, more than likely, tell us a little bit about yourself. So to get started, let us know who you are and tell us about yourself, and take 2 or 3 minutes. don't take 15. Don't take 30 seconds. Just kind of keep it where you're really focused on what are my high level things that are really important that they need to know and that could relate to what is expected of this particular role. Then you want to think about those questions that they could ask of, okay, so why do you want this role? What about this job posting stood out to you and made you decide that you wanted to apply? Those are some questions that just in general, companies may want to know a little bit more about, regardless of the industry, regardless of the role or the skill set. So that is just a little bit today in regards to the STAR method and specifically how you can prepare a little bit more for some of the interviews that you could be asked to sit in on. I think that it is also amazing when people have questions at the end of their interview, but that's another topic for another day. So we can get into that a little bit later. But having some questions for the panel is key. Never, ever, ever, ever leave an interview and not have at least one or two questions that you're going to ask the panel. And it shouldn't be, oh, how soon will I hear something about this position? It's okay to ask that question, but it shouldn't be the only question that you ask. So just making sure that you are fully prepared for your interviews is what I was trying to do in regards to this lesson. So hopefully you took away some nuggets, some information. If so, put it in the comments of what you took away from this that you feel like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that. Maybe I should have known that they would ask me this question so I could prepare for it. But listen through and let us know exactly what it is that you took away from this, because I'm really excited to find out. So on that note, that is it. I try to keep these at a good 15 minutes or so every single day that I come live. So next time I come live will be on today's Wednesday, on Friday, and that will be for the purpose conversation. So we'll be talking about our purpose on Friday. So on that note, I hope everybody has an amazing, amazing Wednesday. Support yourself. And again, if you're interested, please join the Victorious Movement community. It is, again, $27 a month. We talk about affirmations, mindset, the law of attraction, goal setting. We have a question of the day, and just a $50 cash app to people who are part of the community yesterday. So, all right, everybody, take care. Have an amazing one. Bye.